Good morning. We're here to talk about criminal justice reform. And as many of you know, we've had a very interesting session, but this is one of those areas where we agree that something's got to be done. Something's got to be done for the benefit of our state, something's got to be done for our communities, and that's what we're working towards. Criminal justice reform is critical for the long-term health of our communities, long-term health of our state. So we're so glad that we can work together on this issue and many others. And that's because this is what Illinois is expecting and demanding from us. They're expecting that we're going to work together to get problems done on behalf of the people of the state. So I'm thankful that Governor Rauner took the leadership to get us started. And this is just the first step, because that's what it is. This is not the end of the process, the beginning. This process is going to continue. We're going to make sure that we're doing right by our communities. We're putting our folks back to work. We're making sure that individuals who are the most dangerous and are a threat to public safety, they're locked away. But individuals who need help and assistance, we're going to give them that. And that's what we're working towards. That's why I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and with the governor to make sure that we're working to get this done in a bipartisan manner. So thank you so much for everybody being here, and thank you, Governor, for getting this process started.
Good morning. We have had a history of a reflexive, tough on crime policies that was politically driven and easy for us to pass enhancements and create a situation where we're overcrowded in our prisons and we have policy that is incongruent. And I really want to applaud the governor because he and I had a conversation early on, and he acted early on to appoint a criminal justice reform commission. And the reason I would like to applaud the governor, because historically it's been the easy thing politically to maintain a focus on tough on crime. And it takes some courage to undo some of the things that we've historically done. And so the mission of, one, reducing our prison population. We currently have nearly 50,000 people in a Department of Corrections designed to hold approximately 32,000. He set a concrete goal for us to strive towards, but not just that reduction in population, but a change in our policy so we don't go back to the same old reflexive policy that got us into trouble in the first place. So I want to thank the governor. I want to thank my colleagues who have been serving on the commission. It's been a bipartisan, bicameral effort. Hopefully this will bleed out into some other things that we do.
Good morning. I want to echo the words of my colleagues that, number one, it shows what we can do when we work together. We do excellent, great things when we work together. We do horrible things when we work apart. And I think with the police reforms and body cams bill that we had passed and the governor signed into law shows exactly what we can do. This commission, I think, is something that has been needed for a very long time. Our law enforcement officers do an excellent job of catching the criminals that need to be caught, but we do a horrible job of getting them back into society once they have served their time. So I think with this commission, we can look at the aspects of the goal of making sure our taxpayers get the biggest bang for their buck. We've had some tough discussions. Those discussions have led to compromise. And at the end of the day, that's what we're going to have to pass these reforms through both chambers, and that's compromise. I think the temperature is here, that once we get to the best bills we can come up with through that compromise, they're going to fly through the committees, they're going to fly through the chambers, and shows what we can do when we work together. So, thank you.
Good morning. Certainly an honor to be here this morning, and I, as well as the members of the commission and my colleagues that are here this morning, are committed to reforming Illinois' criminal justice system, and we applaud Governor Rauner for his support in this historic endeavor. As a former law enforcement officer, I have witnessed many needed changes to this current system. The bipartisan bills that this commission will be introducing we have developed and will hopefully set the standards for the other states to follow as we work towards a meaningful reform. And I, as well as the colleagues, as I've said before, we have a lot of work ahead of us to do. I think, though, in a bipartisan manner, we can reform our criminal justice system and make meaningful changes in this state. And I applaud, again, Governor Rauner for your initiative with this reform.
Good morning or afternoon. I am grateful to be here because we are talking today about something that is really important in Illinois. We have a lot of subjects that we are debating on a daily basis, but addressing the problems in our criminal justice system is a very important program and subject for us to talk about. I want to thank my colleagues. I'm grateful to be serving with a very diverse bipartisan group of legislators who really have come together to solve a problem. Most importantly, I want to thank the governor for having the ability to see that we could do so much better in Illinois in how we treat this issue. All too frequently, and these are people that we know in our communities, these are people who are in our family who face drug abuse problems, they face mental health challenges that are cause them to end up in our criminal justice system. And the policies and the strategies that we have had in Illinois in the past have prevented those individuals from programs that allow them to deal with their core reason for ending up in the system. And as a result, they end up time and time again. Families, they're broken, their spirits are broken, their families are broken, and we can do so much better. And so we talk about a lot of the reforms, but the reforms are really about identifying very strategically what are those programs within the system that we should be providing to individuals who find themselves in jail because of a drug abuse problem, because of a mental health unchecked problem. We are just beginning. A lot of the bills that we're talking about now are just first steps, but we have an opportunity here in Illinois to really set a new standard for dealing with the criminal justice system in a way that we help people restore their lifestyles, that they begin to have a quality of life that they have otherwise been unable to have in the past here in Illinois. Thank you.
You know, when you're the last person to speak, you're pretty much at a loss for what you can add. But this morning, I'm Mike Connolly. I represent Naperville. I'm in the state Senate, and the Naperville Chamber of Commerce is down here. And they asked me, they said, Senator, tell us some good news. Tell us something that's moving forward. And I brought up the Criminal Justice Reform Commission, and I want to take a few seconds to thank Public Safety Director Roger Heaton and his staff and all the members of this commission. It's not just senators and reps, it's prosecutors, defense attorneys, probation officers, and the like. And we've met all over the state. We've taken input from so many people, victims, from families of those who are incarcerated, and the stories are compelling, and the stories are in every community. And I can't thank the governor enough. When I heard about this commission being proposed, I asked specifically to be added to it, and it's a big step forward. It is bipartisan. It affects all communities, and will there be tough votes coming up? Perhaps, but I think it's the right thing to do. Senator Raul talked about really the pendulum had swung too far, kind of to the right. We need to be smart on crime, and that's where I think this commission has taken us, and I look forward to helping shepherd these bills through the state Senate. And I want to thank our leader, Governor Rauner. Thanks, Governor. Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is an important, very positive step forward to benefit the people of Illinois. The work of this commission has been outstanding. They've been working for the past year extensively together. Bipartisan leaders, both senators as well as representatives in each political party, have come together. Several dozen legislators, along with leaders in law enforcement, judges, leaders from the correction system, come together to talk about how we can improve our criminal justice system and make it work better for all the people of Illinois. We need to keep our people safe, but we need to make sure that those who do commit crimes have their punishment fit their crime appropriately. Some folks who are ending up in prison for extensive terms really could be helped, and people could be kept safe if they didn't necessarily go to prison or didn't go to prison for quite as long a period of time. And then very importantly, we need ways to help our offenders not make the same mistake again and fall back into repeating a crime and going back to prison or being punished again for a second or third or fourth time. Our recidivism rate is far too high, and we are not focused enough on rehabilitating offenders, helping them come back and lead productive lives, getting them vocational training, getting them mental health treatment, getting their drug abuse treatment, and helping their transition back into society in a productive way where our communities are kept safe, but those who've made the mistake of committing an offense are helped to come back and lead productive lives. We do need to have folks go to prison when they deserve to go, and locking people up is an important part of the criminal justice system, but we can't leave it at that. We've got to be far more thoughtful than we've been historically. This commission has done an outstanding job. I want to thank every member of the commission who's here today. Fantastic work. And I want to emphasize something that Representative Sims said. This is not the end of anything. This is the very beginning of a process that will go on for years to improve our criminal justice system, to keep our communities safe, but to help those who make the mistake of committing an offense come back and lead productive lives, lives that honor the law and where they're productive citizens, contributing in positive ways to our society. This commission proposed 14 initial recommendations, 14 recommendations. 3 of those are now in legislative form. We're introducing these bills on a bipartisan basis right now. Another 5 of their recommendations, our governor's office, our administration, can actually implement through administrative action. We don't need to wait for new legislation. We can actually do 5 of the proposals just by taking action within the governor's office. And our administration is already beginning the process to take action on those 5 specific proposals. Then we have another 6 proposals of the initial 14 that do need legislation to implement, and those bills will be coming in hopefully the very near future. We're taking this a step at a time. These 3 initial proposals are ones we think are relatively straightforward to do. Every proposed change is not without controversy. There's arguments on both sides about any change has some folks who might disagree with it, but we think that these are thoughtful reforms. These are people coming together, debating the issues, and coming up with solutions to move our system forward. So we're protecting our people, but we're helping those who need help, who have committed a crime and would really like to come back and be productive. They deserve our help. We have a moral duty to help them, and it will keep our community safer in the long run if we help these individuals. So with that, I would like to open it up for questions. I will ask some of the legislators to join me in answering the questions. I will ask today, in this session, let's have the questions focus on this topic, criminal justice reform. There's a lot going on. We're all well aware of that. There will be other opportunities to talk about the other issues, both later today and tomorrow. But today, we want to focus 100% on criminal justice reform. We could ask that, please.
Governor,
Yes?
how do you square these efforts to reduce the prison population with the ongoing budget impasse that has added pressure to the system in a lot of ways? Adult redeploy, for instance, people are withdrawing from, and a lot of programs that keep people out of prison are under stress at this moment.
Well, the fact that we don't have a budget is a tragedy. We're all frustrated by it. Hopefully we'll come to a solution where we have a budget and our human services can be properly funded, hopefully soon. I'm frustrated. We should have had this done last summer. We're going to do the best we can on that. Our criminal justice system, in my view, has been broken in Illinois for decades. This is not a recent event, and the problems in it are not caused by a lack of a budget. Our problems in our criminal justice system are not caused by any short-term issue that's come up in the past year or 2. This is a long-term structural challenge. Our prisons are overcrowded. We have a very high recidivism rate. And unfortunately, we're taking some folks who've committed a first offense, locking them away with some hardened criminals, and they're actually learning and adopting more criminal behavior potentially, and we're actually making our problems worse rather than better in the way we handle our criminal justice system. We've got to change that, irrespective of what may happen in the short term on any budget situation. Yes.
Kind of a follow-up to her, because there were some law enforcement officials and state county attorneys who were talking about how some of these crime prevention tools, like after-school programs and redeploy, are potentially harming the state in the long term and kind of undermine this plan that you have, which they agree on to reduce the prison population. Do you feel like not having a budget undermines some of these?
Not having a budget is very damaging for all elements of our society. Not having a budget is very damaging. And one of the biggest problems is not having a balanced budget has been damaging Illinois for decades. We haven't had balanced budgets in this state as far back as I can look. I've looked back at 20 years. Because we haven't had balanced budgets, businesses leave. We lose jobs. People become unemployed. Crime goes up. Human service needs go up because we're not growing our economy. We've got to have balanced budgets, structural balance. We've never had that. And for those folks who argue, well, let's not worry about that. Let's do a short-term fix by putting in a massive tax hike. There's a lot of folks who say, let's just try to balance the budget with a massive tax hike. It won't work. It's never worked in the past. We've done that before. What we've got to do is grow our economy. If we're growing, people have higher incomes. We get more tax revenue. We expand our tax base. Fewer people need human services and state support because they've got jobs. And the human safety net isn't as large. People don't have to resort to crime because they've got income coming into their family. We need to grow our economy. We need to put money into our school system and our human services, not into the bureaucracy. We've got to shrink the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is consuming billions of dollars that should go to our human services and to our schools. And that excess bureaucracy and those unbalanced budgets scare employers from Illinois. We have fewer jobs in Illinois today than we had 17 years ago. We won't properly fund our correction system. We won't properly fund our health care or our human services or our schools if we're not growing. And here's a simple fact. If we had just grown at the nation's average, if we had just grown at the average of the 50 states, the average, not the high, just average, and we should grow better than average. I believe in the people of Illinois. We could grow better than average. If we just grown the average over the last 15 years, we wouldn't have budget deficit. We wouldn't have any unpaid bills. We wouldn't have needed the 2011 tax hike, and we would have $19 billion more to put into our school system and into our human services for adult redeploy and other things. We need to grow. We've got to stop thinking that a tax hike alone will solve our problems. That's the big issue. Yes.
Bills that are proposing here. Can you kind of give us a snapshot?
Yeah, so I can give you the highlights. I'll ask legislators to come up and talk about the particular bills that they've gone deep on. One, make sure that folks who leave the correction system after they've served their time get a state ID so they can actually resume semi-normal lives fairly quickly. Another bill that I think is personally terrific, I believe Senator Raul can comment on, I applaud him for his leadership. It focuses on expanding rehabilitative services and programming and eligibility for that. And it also expands electronic monitoring so that the folks who can be out in the community relatively safely and are under rehabilitation, they can transition back into the community on a much more straightforward basis and a more successful basis in the long run. And then the other bill urges judges to explain. When they give somebody a very stiff, harsh sentence and a penalty, they've got to explain, and that person hasn't really committed any prior really bad things, and I'm not an expert on the technical term for it, but really bad is really bad. Explain it publicly so we know, so there's more chance for the judge to have the punishment fit the crime. Those are the three bills. And would any of you like to step up and comment on those?
Yeah, we as the governor said, we've had policy historically that, quite frankly, has been nonsensical policy driven by political fear. An example is with the programming credits, for example. If you have an individual who recidivated and returns to prison after a previous tour, where they were a beneficiary of programming credits, they can't access programming credits. So what is the incentive to get into the rehabilitative programming if you don't get the programming credits? You can argue that there's an incentive in the program itself, obviously, but you want to incentivize participation in these programs so that when we release these people, and we have to understand that at some point they're going to be released. we want to promote public safety. We want to reduce recidivism. It's not just about reducing the prison population. It's about promoting public safety and reducing recidivism. And with regards to the use of expanded use of electronic monitoring, sometimes we end up sending folks to prison for 7 months, because they've served some time at the local level, and with expanded use of electronic monitoring, we can be smarter about our resources and allow folks to also get credit for time while they're on EM as well.
Just for a second, does anybody else would like to comment on any specific piece of the legislation?
I'll
Okay.
briefly talk
Okay.
about mine. I'm sponsoring the bill that the governor talked about, which will require judges to put on the record the reason why they're sending someone to the Department of Corrections. And it seems like a rather simple bill, but I was a Cook County State's Attorney in a prior life, and I've made a point of speaking to PDs and state's attorneys around the state. And it's procedurally, it's important. It's important for for a judge to put in the record exactly why this individual without prior convictions is going to the Department of Corrections. As has been said by many of the other speakers, you send someone to the Department of Corrections, they may come out, they typically sometimes come out, seasoned criminals. And before we do that, let's make sure we put on the record exactly why, without any prior convictions, this individual is going to the Department of Corrections.
How far toward the goal of a 25% reduction do these three bills get us?
I can't quantify that. This is an ongoing process, and we'll be measuring our progress every year and reporting to you. I can't give you an exact number. I don't know if anybody has any. I'm not sure it's possible to give an exact quantification. The important thing is this is a process to make our correction system, our justice system, keep our communities safer, and also help folks come back and lead productive lives. That's what this is about. It's an ongoing process. Frankly, we set the goal. I set the goal of 25%. I think it's realistic. I think it's doable. But you know what? Our goal shouldn't stop at that. We should have long-term go even better than that. When someone's committed one crime, we should work so hard to help them never commit another. So how much can we improve the quality of life and keep our communities safer and help that individual? It's a win-win-win on every level if we can help them not commit another crime. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Earlier, you were asked about the state's attorneys and police chiefs and sheriff's news conference in the basement an hour ago. They were talking about the redeploy initiatives and all that. And you answered with talking about the big picture, and we understand that. But in the little picture, the programs are drying up and their communities are suffering now. Mr. Kelly of St. Clair County was one of those folks. Can you address those specific concerns? You've already taken care of the big picture. What about the little one?
I am very concerned. I'm a large advocate, and I supported adult redeploy aggressively when I first came into office. That is a wonderful effort, adult redeploy, and I'd like to see the efforts around that expanded. There is no one in the state of Illinois more frustrated and upset by what is being hurt, what is not being funded, by the people being negatively impacted by the lack of a budget. Nobody more upset than me. Here's a simple fact. We have solutions to our problems. We need to come together on a bipartisan basis. What we shouldn't do is think, let's just solve the short-term issue on adult redeploy or a particular human service or a particular budget issue. Let's just put in a massive tax hike. That'll fix that problem, and then we'll worry about other stuff later. If that's the mindset that well, first of all, if that were the right answer, it will already have happened. We have a Democratic majority who hasn't even voted even 51% on that, let alone a supermajority. They have not called a vote on a big tax hike because they know that's not the right answer. I have said repeatedly, a massive tax hike alone is not the right answer. Now, I'm very willing, very straightforward to talk about new revenues as part of a budget compromise. I've said it repeatedly. But what we've got to do is get reforms to grow our economy so we don't stay in this mess year after year, where we need more money for adult redeploy because our unemployment is so high, because people are hurting and our incomes are so low. When we don't have economic growth, incomes for families fall. When we have rapid economic growth, incomes for families rise. We have lower family incomes today in Illinois than we had 7 years ago. And it actually, when I've seen the data, it's actually lower than 19 years ago. And we've got fewer jobs than 19 years ago. We've got to grow. If we can combine some new revenue compromises with pro-growth reforms, we will solve many of these problems for the long term, which is what we've got to focus on. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody, appreciate it.
There is no other availability on your schedule today, Governor. Can you talk about the $2 million you gave to turnaround pack this week? Where did you make up that new availability for later?
Enjoy my wife's school.
There's no additional media availability there.